Testing. Oops, sorry about that. Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of North Miami Beach's Council Conference meeting of Tuesday, April 7, 2015. Madam Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilman DeFilippo,
Present.
Councilwoman Kramer, Vice Mayor Martell,
Present.
Councilman Pierre, Councilwoman Smith,
Present.
Councilwoman Spiegel, Mayor Valle.
I'm here. Thank you. Okay, Madam Manager, you've got the first presentation about the PACE program.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council, city staff, and residents that are here with us and watching on TV. We have a tremendous opportunity to join the PACE program as part of an environmental initiative that would be of extreme benefit to our residents. This program started down in the South Dade, South Miami area, and eventually moved up to the Northeast corridor. And now it's an opportunity for us to be able to implement this program that it's only about benefits to our community. So at this time, I wanted to bring up the gentleman that's going to be making the presentation for us, representing the PACE program and the White Green Energy Fund.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Madam Manager, Rafael Perez, I've met with the Assistant City Manager. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. My colleagues were with you back in August, and I would like to inform you that we've grown and we financed a lot of projects, and we got a lot of very happy constituents across the county. So with all due respect, will we start the presentation? Or is there, yeah. We said it?
It's on.
Oh, okay, great. What is PACE? Property Assessed Clean Energy. It's been around a couple years in Florida, but it's been around in California for some time. In California, they've done over 25,000 transactions for over $300 million. So it's a new spin of how to use the tax collection method to be able to do energy efficiency and hurricane protection measures in your property. Municipalities join this special taxing districts, and they give us the ability to let the property owners finance this work through the special taxing district, and then in return they pay it back as a non-ad valorem assessment. So how do I explain this program? Any property owner that wants to do a retrofit to their property that falls within renewable energy, solar, energy efficiency upgrades, AC, insulation, water heaters, lastly, hurricane protection measures, your impact windows or your roof, would use this financing, and they pay it back through their property taxes. Next slide, I guess I just explained that. Oh, okay. Go to the third slide. Yeah. So it's 100% financing. The biggest obstacle from property owners doing upgrades to their property is upfront cost. It costs a lot of money to do certain upgrades, and what this program does allows property owners to use the pay-as-you-go model. So what we get nowadays is people want to do their roofs or their impact windows to lower their insurance, and when the contractor shows up and says it's $15,000, they're like, I don't have the money. But if they had the money, their insurance will go down $2,000, and they could with the savings, right, they could finance this. And that's what we're seeing every day, not only in the hurricane protection measures, but also in the energy efficiency model. But in particular, in this area, it's all about strengthening your home. So it's voluntary. I like to tell councils, it's just giving your residents another option. If they don't want to use this, they don't have to use this. And it's not only good for residential, but also for commercial. I was speaking to your head of your CRA, and she's like, this is great. We could use matching grants, and we can make the community nicer, nicer storefronts, better signage that is LED or something, more high efficiency. Certain things we could do, and this will be great for the community as a whole. It's not credit-based, so the property owner doesn't have to have great credit to do this. We get a lot of cases that people, they went ahead and had to modify their home or something. They fell into some tough times like we all did, and they want to do their roof or they want to do something, and when they go to their bank, the bank says, sorry, your credit's not good. Well, with this type of financing, You only have to have 10% equity in your property, no lates on your property taxes for the last 3 years, paid your mortgage on time for 12 months, and no bankruptcy in the last year. And that's all you need to qualify for this program. Next slide. I said this earlier, eliminates upfront costs, it's not credit-based, long payback periods, payments stay with the property if it's sold. For commercial properties, it's off balance sheet. I could give you a great example. We did the BrandsMart in Palmetto Bay down in, and all they wanted is to save more than their financing. Well, the project ended up being a $1.8 million retrofit. They changed all their LED lights, they changed their HVAC controls, and they did elastomeric on their roof to give their roof another 20 years for a quarter of the cost of replacing. So they're excited. They're so excited that they took us to Miami Gardens and talked to the mayor and the city manager, and now made Miami Gardens join the program, and now Miami Gardens we're doing with them a $3 million retrofit of the one off of the Palmetto Expressway. And for them, it's great. It's off their balance sheet. It's like they're using somebody else's money, and they pay it back over time through their taxes. So there's real potential savings. So the next slide just shows how it will look on some property owners' taxes. On the top portion, as we all know, is ad valorem, which is based on what the property appraisal says your value and the millage set by the government entity. We're in the bottom. I think North Miami Beach puts their trash pickup, so it's a fixed amount. It's fixed for 10 or 20 years. Next slide. I went ahead and looked at the video of when my colleague presented. Back then, we had 12 cities. We have now 17. A lot of cities are taking advantage of this. There's no liabilities to the taxpayers, which is the best thing we could ask for. It's free to the city. We've taken responsibility of everything. It's a turnkey method. We advertise. We send mailers to property owners telling them about the program. We'll do workshops. We'll do whatever it takes to get the word out so people could use this program, because we see the benefit. It's the state statute, how it starts. State statute 163.08 says, it's a compelling state interest for all of us to be more energy efficient and also for us to be more resilient to storms. So that's why it's a benefit. Zero risk. Next slide. Up to date, the district has been able to receive 1,500 applications, receiving about 150 a month. Average project is about 29,500. Here's the BrandsMart, and mostly for roof, windows, and AC. We get some solar once in a while, but that's mostly. Next slide, Richard. So this slide is 2 weeks old. We hit the $10 million mark for the 16 months of operations, and we're over 300 projects that we finance. That's just a breakdown of all the cities and what they've accomplished. Then the last slide. The last slide just says our pipeline. We have 469 projects in some form of construction, and for $13 million. And I think the best thing I'm here really for is to answer your questions. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Perez. I know I've got some questions, but let me see if any of my colleagues have anything. Anybody? Oh, okay, go ahead.
I would just like to make a quick comment because in today's economy and the way things are happening, reverse mortgages is, another alternative. And in addition to that, nowadays the equity line of credit is not something that's readily available that is used to be. And when I saw what you have to offer, I really am excited because I think this gives, like you said, it's another opportunity and another choice of what can be done. And the only question for me is, would new construction be something that could be added at some point? I know you don't have it in here at the moment because you have it as, all green, but would that be something that could be contemplated in the future?
Great question, Vice Mayor. The state statute allows that. Other PACE districts around the United States will tell you no. I'm a general contractor by trade. I read the state statute. I've worked in the legislature, and it does allow it. So any transactions like that, I would love to look at them and speak. What we've said is if a construction project is going to be what the code requires, let's say windows, but they go higher and above, we'll finance the difference because we're trying to help them take the next step to make it more efficient. If they're going to just do fluorescent lights, what the code requires, but they say, you know what, we would do LED if we had a vehicle that could help us because the bank is only giving us 60% of the money and we need another vehicle and we would do it, it would pay us back in the long run, that's where PACE could come in as a supplemental to existing loans or cash that they have.
Okay.
So we could do it, yes.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Smith?
Thank you. I just want to make a few comments too then. I didn't have a question. In calling Home Depot to find out what they do and how they charge based on your credit rating and based on a few other things, and it's prohibitively expensive because I was told that. And even the banks and the lenders that give home improvement loans, the rigmarole they put you through, it is amazing. But this is a contract. It's just paid in your taxes. And the one question I had when they came to discuss it with me was their prepayment penalty. And there is, because the way that the company makes their money is over the long term of the loan, the interest rate, even though the interest rate is much less than you can get it in other improvement places. But that was the big advantage. I think for cities to have this as an advantage will change some of the landscape. I know that when I'm meeting the public knocking on doors, they want to paint, they want a new roof, they just can't afford it. And so this is an easy way for them to be able to do this. And there is a fee, there is a cost, but the cost based on what the market is out there is much less and much easier to obtain. So I wanted the public to know that because it is a business, and it's a good business for you, but it's also a very good business for the municipalities as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And yeah, there is a prepayment penalty of 5%. Remember, investors are
3%,
buying.
he told me. He told me 3%.
No, it's 5% of the outstanding principal, but you could buy no penalty at 3%. And I want to give you an example. I have guys that have used this program to go ahead and purchase a house, put in PEC windows, invest $20,000, use our money, and sell it for 25. So when that prepayment is $1,000, they're okay. They put something that was necessary to make that house function, so somebody could buy it, and it's $1,000. They write it off. Another thing I wanted to add: it's not credit based. It doesn't go on your credit. You do a $20,000 transaction, it's on your credit report. So big advantage for property owners. I say you need a roof and you need a truck to work. With Y-Green, you get both. You use your credit for your car, your truck, and you use Y-Green Finance to put your roof. It's also tax savings. It's placed on your property taxes. There's income tax savings you could use because of that vehicle. And for what you said, Vice Mayor Martel, a lot of elderly people, like my mom and dad that are in Hialeah, they don't have the money to do this. They can't go to a bank to do this. And guess what? They've paid their home. They've paid their dues. And they love this vehicle because they're not required. They want to do their roof. They're not forced to get insurance. So there's a lot of benefits to this program, and I appreciate your kind words, Councilman.
But, Mr. Perez, I want to make it clear, because I'm not an accountant, I'm not a CPA, but it seems to me it's more like a special taxing district, which is not a tax write-off, than it does your taxes. So I don't know that that's, unless you have proof that you can write it off in your taxes, I wouldn't go so far with the public.
The IRS has a code that you could make some deductions.
So there you go. And the other thing I might add is that this program, what I find very beneficial is you could do a little or a lot.
Exactly.
It's up to you to what degree you use it. But I think that it's a big benefit to at least have the option for the residents.
Absolutely, ma'am.
And one thing I'd like to add to the public that's excited about this, what they do is they bring you down to their office, and they give you an interview at the office to tell you exactly how the program works and give you a list of contractors in your community that can do the work. So even though there's no money out of your pocket, if a contractor does happen to come and he charges something, that's because that contractor wanted to pay for his materials. You just picked another one that doesn't charge.
Yes, ma'am. So to your point, we will also come to you because we understand that Coconut Grove is a little far, but that's what I tell clients every day. How many times in your life do you change your windows? How many times in your life do you do your roof? We don't pay the contractor till the work is 100% complete. North Miami Beach inspectors pass it, and then the property owner sign a closing statement. So you're protected. And a lot of the contractors are participating, understand that people have an end loan. They have the ability to use our financing, but they don't have a bridge to get you there. So windows is a good example. You want to do $20,000 a window? What the contractor says, he shows up to your house, 50% down. guess what? You're rolling the dice. Is he going to come back? Is he going to finish? Sometimes he's using your money to finish some other deal. With Wygreen, these contractors that we're using and the ones that are preferred or we do the concierge service, they don't ask for no money down. You're protected because the money doesn't get dispersed to the work is 100% complete. North Miami Beach inspects it, and they sign a closing statement. So that's a big benefit for property owners that not all of us have the experience of some of you being realtors, that know how things work. Not everybody's, that's not their business. So they're protected. Yes, ma'am.
The last thing I want to ask you, but before I do, I want to tell you with a program like that, we might have to shut down our free service that we have in the police department, that if they did not complete the work and you paid for that, which we have right now for our residents.
That's great.
Did you hire somebody who speaks Creole? That was going to be one of the goals when they were in my office. They were going to try to hire somebody who speaks Creole, especially North Miami's on board and North Miami Beach.
Definitely, we want to serve everybody. So we will do whatever it takes, even if we hire somebody part-time to be our intermediate person to speak. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I have just a few questions. You mentioned that well, first of all, what does the city need to do? Basically, we do sorry. Here's a mic. What does the city need to do? Pass a resolution or an ordinance creating a special tax district?
Yeah, no, you just passed a resolution joining an existing district right now, the coastal corridor, that has now, I think, 10 member city, or
Okay.
maybe not 10, a little bit less. And then you instruct the city manager to sign the interlocal, and then she proceeds to do
Okay.
that.
So
All right.
we would have to come back to the
Okay.
council
I got it.
shortly.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering how the special tax district, so I guess the special tax district is countywide, I'm assuming then, right?
Well,
Pretty
yes,
much.
it is, but we only could participate in cities that have joined the
That have
program.
joined it. Got it. You mentioned that the people have to have 10% equity. What kind of term is involved here? Like, how many years?
We have
do you think?
5, 10, and 20.
Okay.
And our interest rates are between 4.5 to 6.5.
Okay. Depending on, so you will sit down with the person and work out whatever works for them and that you guys can do.
Yes. And I'm not sure if my colleague said this. We have a portal that you guys will have access. Your head of your CRA, which is also works for another city, she has access to every property. She could run properties. You guys have access. You can see anytime, hey, I want to know what's going on in our city. It's all a portal. It's an open book with us. So you could feel safe that at any time, anybody you give access, if the city manager, the assistant city manager, it's there available for them to view every project that's going on in the city.
Is there, with respect to the vendors that you guys use, is that a closed system of vendors, or do other vendors can apply and get in on that, or how does that work?
We're adding every month, sir. We're having a class. I just had my last class in the city of Miami Lakes in order to do something in the north end. I would love to do something up here for contractors. They continuously join. They do a certification class that I teach. Then I check with Department of Business and Professional Regulation to make sure they're licensed.
Right.
Remember, all work has to be done with a permit. So
Sure.
before they could go ahead and do a job, they need to get a permit. And your building official checks everybody's license too. So there's double layers of protection for everybody. So yes.
But yeah, like businesses that are in our city could go to you and apply and to get on your
Some
list.
contractors and certify, yes.
Cool.
Do work, yes.
Is there a limit of how do you is there a limit to how much a homeowner can borrow? I'm just thinking, for example, let's take an average home here just north of City Hall. You know, there may be a home for $250,000 or
Okay, so there's a formula we use based on state statute. So if the home is worth, and I'm just going to use $200,000 to be an easier number, and is being taxed by the tax assessor at $100,000, we say 20% of the $100,000 being assessed by the tax collector. So they could use $20,000 for their improvement. It's a formula. The system does it for you, but that's
Okay.
the formula.
all right. And you guys handle all the applications. Do we need any staff involved, or
You guys just, when you want me to report back to you, I come back and report to you. I report to the city manager. But we do everything with our portal, and you guys have access to look at all our work. No staff has to be involved. No, it's up to your choice what you want.
Okay. I have one question that I've never been able to understand from what I've heard about how this works. How do you guys get around the, if you're putting, let's say, a 25,000 or something, technically that's jumping ahead of the mortgage company in priority. Does the mortgage company have anything to say about this?
State statute 163.08, ask all of you to read is one page.
Yeah.
There's a clause that says clearly that anybody that enters into a finance agreement for this purpose of the statute, the part of accelerating the mortgage, it's not enforceable. There's a difference between other states. Texas, for an example, is a lender consent state. Do you really think the bank's going to give you consent? No. So the program has failed in Texas. They finance zero. In Florida's lender notification state. So when somebody applies, we notify the lender, hey, we're going to enter into this. I think out of those 1,500 applications that have come in, only one bank has ever objected. And when that happens, we send a letter through the property owner back to them and say, here, read the state statute. Remember, these upgrades are only going to make the home or the property better, more energy efficient or more hurricane protection. The bank, when the Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce Banking Committee came to our office to have their monthly, quarterly meeting, 30 bankers were in the room. 27 said, this is the best thing I've ever heard. 3 of them were old school, and they're like, no, this is not good because you're in higher position than us. But it's a great program because what I tell them is if somebody puts windows in their home, the value travels together. Nobody puts windows and the property decrease in value. So all the upgrades are to either make the property more resilient to storm or make the property more energy efficient.
Okay, and then last question. The 10% equity, I guess the people have to get an appraisal through you?
No, sir. We have a system through Black Knight Services. It's a service that you buy, and when a person puts their property address, it automatically uses that service and does like a little mini appraisal
Oh,
to
an
determine the
AVM.
market value. So we don't ask. Now, if somebody feels that the value we're giving to their property is not what it is, it should be higher, they have the option. We have another system that we do an additional little mini appraisal, and then lastly, somebody could go get an appraisal. And that happens sometimes when people buy a new house. They just bought a house, they put 20% down, and then our system is saying that the home is valued less, and they go, here's your appraisal. And back to what I was saying about that, is that it's great for somebody that just bought a house. They put 20% down, nobody's going to lend them money. Now they need their windows, they need their roof, and this is where we come in and we help them.
Well, Mr. Perez, thank you for coming in. I don't see any downside. I mean, it's just an option. It's another tool in the tool belt, and I certainly believe that in our city, a lot of our residents could benefit from this because I know that there's a lot of older housing stock. There's a lot of homes that need roofs, that are sitting with old jalousie windows in some cases, or just non-hurricane resistant, non-energy efficient windows. So I think it's a great thing. I definitely I don't see any reason
I
not.
wanted to add, Mr. Mayor, if I may, it would also help us with our dollars in CRA. Going back and looking at all the monies we've spent in our CRA when it comes to roofing and impact-resistant doors and windows, now this is a new mechanism that can be used, allowing us to have more monies in CRA for beautification and painting and facade improvements.
Or bigger impact items, Councilwoman Smith?
And I might add, you said it's good for hurricane, but it's also good for code compliance and beautification of our city. I mean, there are people that just want to have a prettier this or that and didn't have the means to do it. And then there's also people that have violations against them and didn't have the means. Now they could do 2 things at once. I just feel, I think the option of it and the program is a win-win for everyone.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Oh, is there?
Real quickly, I'm very enthusiastic about the program as well. As president of the Chamber of Commerce for our city, I hope this is something that we can bring in and maybe work together and work through our community to make sure we can let them know what's available to them and
pleasure.
maybe use that as
Absolutely, sir.
a vein to get out there. So I look forward to working closely
sir.
with you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
We're coming back in June with the resolution.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Perez.
June? Or in June? Okay.
We don't have any meetings in May.
Oh, okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you for your time.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Mr. Perez, thank you.
Okay. Our next item is just a discussion about proposed legislation for Charter Review Committee. And I think this was, I'm trying to remember, a few meetings ago, I guess the topic came up and we kind of kicked it around. It seemed like the general feeling was that we should reconstitute or create a new Charter Review Committee, right? Mr.
Exactly. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it was at your February 26th workshop on the charter that you asked that we come back and bring you a resolution to reconstitute the Charter Review Committee. We're also tweaking the enabling ordinance, which needs to be changed to accommodate your wishes, and at the same time remove some language from the ordinance that I would consider to be mumbo jumbo, which, if you understand it, you're a better person than I am, because it makes no sense. So we're fixing the ordinance, and also making sure that the reso is consistent with your desires expressed at that meeting. And I will have Sarah Johnston tell you some of the key elements of the resolution to make sure that we're all on the same page as far as what we want this charter review committee to do.
Good evening. You'll see you have two pieces of legislation. The first is the city attorney expressed is the ordinance, and that removes just some of the language that was inconsistent with the desire expressed by the council at the February meeting. Most importantly, the commencement date that was in the original code, which we've removed, the duties of the committee, the term of the committee, and the secretarial services to be provided by the city manager. All those provisions have been removed. They'll be set by resolution. The other piece of legislation you have is the resolution providing for the duties. It establishes the committee, sets forth their scope. Some of the items that we have listed is the powers of the mayor and the vice mayor, term of office, your term limits, election date, and the runoff. These were all items that the council expressed just differing views, and that they'd like to go before a committee. We also put a catch-all provision that the authority of the committee would be any items prescribed by the council. So it would be within your discretion to determine what the committee reviews. So they're not just reviewing any items that perhaps you have already agreed to, like a new charter, charter officers. These are some of the provisions there was consensus. So we wanted to limit the scope of the committee to the items that there were some differing opinions. We also provided the term beginning June 16th to January of 2016. This was also indicated at the February meeting that you wanted this committee to convene in June. The reason this is before you today is because it would require an ordinance, which would be first and second reading in June. And we would bring, if you agree, the resolution with the second reading of the ordinance. That way the Charter Review Committee could convene in June to have the questions before you to approve to go on the ballot in time for the election next spring.
Quick question.
Yes.
Quick question for you. Okay, so they have a 1-year time limit then. That was, okay.
A little under a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do we name the people on the charter? Is it the same as last time? Each council person submits a name?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm fine with it. I think there was general consensus, but anybody with any questions on this one? All right.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
Okay. Small thing. I don't understand why you would eliminate that the city manager is obligated to make available secretarial service for the Charter Review Committee. When I served on the Charter Review Committee, we had a very difficult time getting our meetings transcribed, getting copies of the charters done, and there needs to be, in my opinion, a specific provision that requires the manager to set aside funds.
It's usually falls within the purview of the clerk. We could change, that's why we pulled the language out for the city manager, but it's something we can add for the clerk. But those are typically clerk's responsibilities.
But we're in the middle of a budget season. Madam Clerk, do you have money in your budget right now to cover secretarial services for a Charter Review Committee?
I'm sorry, I do, because I did it with the last committee. It's
Okay. I would like some provision that continues to remain in here that the city shall provide needed secretarial services.
Okay.
I don't care who in the city does it. I get what you were trying to do, but I think that what this does is very myopic. If we're going to ask 7 good citizens of the city of North Miami Beach to take a look at the charter and come back and make their recommendations to us, I don't think we should be tying their hands the way that the resolution states. I mean, we all up here think that it should be a more modern charter if we give that direction, but I think that this is substituting the opinion of the council for the citizens who are going to serve. And ultimately, it's up to us sitting up here what recommendations, what charter provisions we put on the ballot. So, I'm not sure that I like the resolution the way it's drafted. I think it should be more open-ended. There may be areas and items that 7 good residents would think of that we don't think of, and there may be items that 7 good residents have a completely different perspective than us sitting politicians have. So I think it should be more open-ended into what their duties are. I mean, what we can do is just simply say that the city council wants this charter review committee to take a look at the feasibility of basically dumping the entire old charter and coming up with a more modern charter and making recommendations as to what those provisions should be. That's my thought.
Councilwoman, quick question. Well, actually, for Ms. Johnson, the comments that my colleague just made, that would be in the resolution, not in the ordinance, or?
Correct. Yeah, the resolution provides certain specific areas for the Charter Review Committee to give them some direction. And we put a catch-all and other provisions as determined by the City Council. So if the council were to decide they wanted them to look at some areas that we haven't included, then you would just be providing that direction. Because this is a very limited time frame for a Charter Review Committee to convene and to review an entire charter, we were limiting the scope, but it's really the direction of the council.
To follow up on that question, the way it's written, whatever we write in the resolution will limit what they're looking at? I personally, I don't mind it being open-ended. There may be things that we want to specifically point out that they should look at and give their opinion on.
So it's obviously a policy decision that you all need to make. I have served on 3 charter review committees in one form or another, and I've seen others. And what happens sometimes is that you have a rogue member that wants to do a strong mayor form of government, or that wants to do districts, or that wants to create a dictatorship. And then we spend meeting after meeting after meeting debating stuff that we know will never pass muster. So a 6-month period becomes a 1.5 year period. So there's got to be some limit as to what this Charter Review Committee can engage in. Now, if a member comes to any one of you and says, you know what, I've got this great idea that nobody else has thought about, and you as a member of the council would like to send that over to the Charter Review Committee to consider it, you're always able to do that. It's within your purview to have them consider anything. But to just open it up, we're never going to do it in 6 months. It's going to take forever.
So are you recommending then that, like, for example, that we give them, I believe we may have, in that meeting of several meetings ago when we kind of talked about this, that there were certain like broad themes that everyone agreed to right off the bat. Council manager forum, no strong mayor. I know there was, well, I guess term limits was a subject of debate, but I'm trying to think of what else besides that there's broad agreement on. Is that what you're recommending, that we kind of limit and say, look?
What I'm recommending is that anything that you all debated here, it's for them to consider. Anything that came up during the discussion is fair game. And if somebody comes up with a bright idea, they can consider it as long as one of you refers the item to them.
How would we do that?
You would have an item for discussion, asking that a particular idea be sent to the Charter Review for the.
So we would then say, by the way, at a some other meeting of ours, we would say, guys, this idea or this line of thinking has emerged and it's not in there. We need to tell them to look at this.
You can do that. Yes.
All right. What about the reverse? What if we just leave them open-ended, and all of a sudden, if somebody is going rogue and really, just wasting the time of the other members on the committee, is there a way for us to reel them in?
You can do that
at a
as
subsequent meeting?
It's a policy decision.
Okay. I don't mind having it open-ended just because it saves from having someone then say, oh, well, you don't want them looking at this or that or the other. I've got no problem with it being open-ended. If we have somebody that becomes is out of line on then we'd have to reel them in as us. But go ahead, Councilwoman.
Well, I also know that sometimes when in that discussion, because I went and sat in on many of those meetings, and one thing will lead to another thought. While they're debating, they said, you know what, let's go back to that if you're going to do this. And that's why I like the idea that they would have a little more latitude than the way this says, because in that direction, they could bring their thoughts forward. They have to get a majority to actually bring it to us. And maybe there are some things that'll tie into something else that we up here never even thought of, and they wouldn't think to bring it to us. They wouldn't think to bring it to us because they thought it tied into something else. So that's the reason I like to have it for where.
All right. Councilwoman Martel? Vice Mayor?
I'll be honest, I rather have a structure only because our strategic plan is a perfect example of how we created a roadmap and we're making it a ways to get to where we want. When you have meetings where, you have, as it is up here, if we each spend 10 minutes talking on an issue, you've already spent 70 minutes here that we're not going to get back. So if you have individuals that have a different thought on multiple topics, those meetings can become extremely extensive. And I really do believe that if somebody, if you don't have a strong chairperson that will guide the members, it could turn into something that, it no longer gives an opportunity to be able to bring it forth with the residents. And I also do believe that there should be a time period or, where additional comments can be made. Like when you have a meeting where you structure certain things and at the end, additional comments, where then those items can be brought forth. But I'm more on the belief of keeping things where we have a roadmap, where we know where we're headed, and that way everybody stays on the same path.
Okay. Let me try to dispose of the one item. Councilwoman Spiegel brought up the issue of having kind of a clearly defined, I guess, line of accountability for the secretarial services. I don't think nobody has an objection on that, right? Is that okay? That's an easy one. So I guess let's hear from everybody what they think, whether they want open-ended or they want some kind of guidelines from the get-go. Because it looks like we can either rein somebody in if it's open-ended, or we can give direction and then open it up if somebody wants to have something else. I guess it's just a policy decision, so I guess let's hear from everybody.
I like the idea of keeping it structured, and I believe that first of all, the timing of when we choose our appointees to when the actual first meeting starts, how long do you think that time would be?
June.
If you make your appointments in June, we would hope to have a meeting within 30 days.
Okay. So, right. So, it gives them time to maybe come up with things maybe at the first meeting that perhaps is not in here at all. Just, so I want it structured, but at the same time, of course, I do want to listen to other, what our appointees have to say. So.
Yes or no?
My problem was the last whereas clause on the bottom of the first page. I have no problem that we're that we're going to say to the Charter Review Committee, which is 7 good citizens, not politicians, that we want a new modern charter, that we want to retain the Citizens Bill of Rights, that we want to retain the council management form of government, the charter. The charter officer positions I'd like to leave open, because I think that in the cities in Dade County, no offense, Madam Clerk, but there are a fair number that the clerk is under the manager, and the fair number where the clerk is an independent charter officer. I don't know what the residents will say, but outside of that, what I have a problem with is the direction after that, because I trust the residents. I know that on my committee, we all worked very hard. We read other charters, we went online, we did research, we talked to other people. We actually held 2 public meetings for public input. I believe that was the first time I ever met Mr. Kazan. It was the first time I ever met Mr. Cook, was at those public meetings for the Charter Review Committee. And the other thing I have to tell you is I don't think that it's realistic. If we're going to appoint, or whoever the new council members are going to appoint people in July, to give them, or in June, and to expect that they will complete their work. This is an entirely voluntary committee, that we're giving them 5 months, in essence, to complete their work, especially when it's going to cover Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays. I think I'd be much more comfortable with giving them until maybe April, and that way that we can have time, because we're not going to have this on a special election. We're certainly in this city not going to pay for a special election, I wouldn't think, for charter. So if this wound up in the September elections or August
Well, it's
elections,
either August or November.
August when
counties.
we do judges in State House, or, well, it's not going to be State House next year, is it? What,
June.
do November?
It would be,
June to June.
If you go August, you have to have your permission and questions into the county at least 60 days prior.
Which would be June.
Exactly.
So if they have until April to report back, then we could make the August, if there was a consensus, and if not, it would go on the November.
Well, you also have to,
wait, let's see. Let me see.
you also
Let's see.
have, they wanted 60 days, but you have to also put in the fact that we have to get the language ready. It has to be done in the 3 languages. So we would need some more time
wait.
in there to make sure.
So
But realistically, folks, everybody that we're going to appoint has other professions, other occupations, other demands on their time, and finding time, because there's a city clerk that's assigned to it, an assistant city attorney that's assigned to it, and 7 working individuals who are giving up their time. I don't think that it's realistic to expect them through Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's to have this done and back to us by January. I just don't think that's a realistic time.
where are you
frame.
getting January? Because are we talking about June?
No.
No.
Starts in June and will expire on January 19, 2016. I don't think that's a
Wait,
realistic
I wrote down June to June.
No.
No,
No.
that would be nice, but it's not.
Well,
It's-
why don't we just make it June to June? Make it that way. I mean,
You may want to have them
There's
come
not gonna
back
be
to
an-
you April or May, because you have
Right.
to already know that what you're gonna put on the ballot, get the permission from Miami-Dade County, then come back and then get the ballot done, your language done, and back to Miami-Dade County.
but realistically, August of 16, that would be the first one we would be able to jump on. That would not cost us.
Oh, it's gonna cost you either way, but that'll be the first one
Okay, so
available.
if we don't make August, we got November right behind it. So maybe the thing to do is try to line it up to be ready for August. And if you I mean, listen, we've known that this charter needs work for a while, and we've gone through one committee. We tried to talk about it. Now we're doing another committee. I'm not sure that anyone's going to die if we end up on November of 16 versus August of 16. So, let's shoot for timing wise. I would probably just say shoot for timing wise for November then. That way, finish it up in June, because then the council has to talk about it, and then there's legal language that has to be drafted and conversations with the elections and all that other stuff that has to go. That way, it's not we're not putting such a tight time pressure on ourselves. Does that sound better?
I agree. I think it's it's a more realistic time frame to extend it a few more months, because if we're going to get into a lot of other issues that we haven't even begun to discuss yet, I think it's going to take more time.
Well, yeah, and I think that the bulk of the time will be spent on the major items, because really the whole point of the charter is structure of government. That's really, you know, what it should be. All this extraneous stuff that's in our current charter, we all feel that you know, they should be drafting a modern charter, which any model that they take is not going to have all that stuff in it. So they will be starting from a better place. So it's really debates about structure of governance of the government itself. I say if we just go, you know, let's target for November. That way we're not driving everybody crazy, and
that's fine.
Let's go with that.
Mr. Mayor, may,
You cool with
may I-
that? Yeah.
Would there be an option of a mail-in type of ballot?
That would be a special set aside, but that is an option.
Yeah, but there's no, again, with the timing of this, if, you know, it's not life or death, you know, from one day or the other. So let's piggyback off of a county election so that we're not paying so much money. Seems to okay.
So what I'm hearing is extending the time period until June of 16, and also giving the committee a wider latitude to consider other matters.
I would think maybe we should do this. I'm trying to find a middle ground from the comments that I'm hearing here. I hear that people want structure, and then when are you going to draft this resolution for us to do this? Would be when, in June? So it would be in June, right?
We need 2 readings of the ordinance before this goes into effect, so it would be June.
All right. How about if you just get some, you know, if anyone has any particular areas that they would like to add to that whereas clause, because it does say and other provisions as determined by the city council, maybe we can, if there's something in particular you want to see, get with the city attorney, and, you know, I can't imagine anybody's going to object. No, I don't, you know, I just, you know, if there's something specific you want to see, give it to the attorney so we can work it into the resolution. Does that sound right?
Fine.
Okay. I mean, that way it's trying to, you know, bridge the gap here between the comments that I've heard. Okay. Anything else on this one then?
I think the only thing to say is when we have the committee together, the committee can be instructed, and that's when they have to know that if they have an idea that wasn't presented,
Right.
bring it back to one
Sure.
of the council people.
Right. It can be handled verbally. Okay.
Not a communication between a council member and a member of the charter committee. You're in separate boards. The sunshine law does not apply in that situation because they're different boards. You're not voting together on the same
And it would,
matter.
but in any case, if there was something like that, they would have to, one of us would have to bring it up at the next council meeting, right?
If a member came to you and said, this is the idea that I want you to consider, then one of you all
Would bring it up
the
as
agenda.
discussion or whatever, and we would.
And then it would be referred to the charter review committee for them to
Okay,
consider.
the consensus of the council would send it back to them with, okay, got it. All right, I think we've covered that one enough. So we'll see it in June, and if there's any ideas, we'll bring it to you. Yes,
I just got
Councilman.
one question for the attorney. For the record, can you tell us what are the different ways we can make changes to the charter?
We gave you a couple of PowerPoint presentations telling you what the different areas are that
No,
that
we're
you
not
should
talking
consider.
about the areas, the different ways we can make changes to the charter.
There are 3 different ones, right?
Okay, so
What are they?
You can pass a resolution putting a new charter on the ballot, or you can do an initiative petition.
Thank you.
And I can't. There's probably a third way. Referendum. Or a referendum.
Got it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's everything for our council conference. So we'll.
Before you adjourn,
Oh, yeah,
Mr. Mayor.
go ahead.
Madam Manager, the gentleman that was the first speaker, is it a resolution or an ordinance, I guess I should?
It's a resolution.
If it's a resolution, why can't he bring it back to the next meeting? Because that 2-week resolution, if he works with them, there might be people that want to get started over the summer.
As quickly as we can do it right and bring it back to you, we will.
Yeah, I think
Didn't you guys say you were going to do it on the next meeting in June?
No, we had actually said that we were.
I said, but we have but we have.
I
May.
got it.
We have
Right.
March.
You're talking about the April 21st.
Yeah, April, May.
Okay.
I mean, there's 2 months in there that if they can do it, they'll do it. If that's all. If they
Sure.
can.
No,
Resolution.
I forgot about the 21st. Got it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. All right, we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting, and we'll be back in our places at 7:30 p.m. to get our meeting started. So we'll see you guys in just a few minutes. Thanks.